Hi, everyone. Julia here with Lana Alabante or A Labonte. I got that from James. She's like Alabante. I like that. And today is December 24th, 2022, Christmas Eve. And Lana and I have met in real life and very synchronistic. There are no coincidences. And we just really hit it off and really on the same path too of just sharing our experience and how it's helped us grow and we feel like we're evolving and getting closer to being loved and we just want to help other people get there too. So how's it been going, Lana?
Fabulous. Merry, let's say merry festivities. I don't even know the words, the celebrations. It's just, to me, it's all about being with the people that you love, that really, truly you connect with. And I was reflecting upon how we met just the other night too. And it's just, you can't make up this life. You cannot not make up these stories. And it just makes me smile because of the fact that the way we met was just so ironic. And most people would see it as what a pain in the ass, but in reality, it ended up being so synchronistic and perfect that had the events not unfolded the way they had with the craziness, we wouldn't be here connected. And then it just turned out that when we did connect, it was like, oh my gosh, we listened to so many of the same similar podcasts and YouTube videos, and we were like connected with all these other things that were very much in the same realm of life experience, and we pretty much walking the path. And I just chuckle because it's the way that the universe brings us together the way it does. And yes, there are so many different branches of everybody seeking what is the truth. It just fascinates me because when it all boils down to it, the truth is it's always going to be that we're coming together for a reason. We're coming together in these different seasons. I'm just really grateful and very blessed that we found each other the way that we did. And it's just beautiful to see the way that things are coming together over there. And I was just sharing with Julia how I'd had a dream last night about being over there again, because I do plan on coming back, and I'm in the process of a home renovation so that my dad can sell the house that we have that was my grandmother's, move him into my place, and then our plan is to come to Portugal and look at what are the best locations. So that has always been on my trajectory. And there's other places in Portugal too, like I know you're already in the Algarves, which is absolutely gorgeous. And I personally prefer to have that type of temperature climate. Then I've been doing some research too about the Azores and Madeira as well. And I'm just open to anything, because when I was delayed even coming down there, I was stuck in the airport for a full day because I missed my flight connection from Venice. And I was stuck in Lisbon. And I met a man who lived in Madeira, and he said, hey, you've got to come to Funchal for at least a couple of days. He said, you can just hang out there and it's so cheap and it's so beautiful. And I was like, I'm going to have to check it out, because sometimes we need to get a little bit more feel. And I know my dad, he watches a lot of YouTube videos with people who move to Portugal as expats at, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, yes, Dad, but you have to physically be there. Yeah. So yeah, today then is the Christmas Eve. And I want to say one other thing too, because I know holidays, especially with the times, the way they've been unfolding, I know that everybody is going through these waves of, do I celebrate? Do I not celebrate? Like there's this melancholy. I mean, when you get older, you have more melancholy, and it actually brings up more of the traumas, because the irony around these rituals, and I say this without, I don't want to say it with any type of animosity, but there's a certain point where you get to and you realize, wow, all these the debasing of the lies of what we thought when we were kids was part of the celebration, and we thought it was beautiful. And especially if you grew up religious, oh my gosh, now it's like all the stuff starts coming out and you're like questioning everything you ever experienced, not to turn it around and make it bad, because you should always look at those memories and say, you know what, they were beautiful for what they were at the time. But as we've evolved and the more that we learn, never discredit or discount what you've experienced that brought you to where you're at, good or bad, it doesn't matter. But the holidays, holy days, holly, as in the, the casting of the spells, I think very, very much I myself have been conflicted because of the fact that I almost feel like we go through Groundhog's Day, but like in a year. Because what have they done? They've turned days into commercialized events, and here comes the next holiday, and it's almost like we're all overwhelmed with, wait a minute, we just came through one holiday and now they're advertising Halloween, and then they're already throwing Christmas stuff up, and next thing you know, it's going to be the Valentine's and then the Easter. And I'm like, it just makes your head spin, because it's constant distraction, when in reality we should be living each day as a celebration, because it's really about the people that you surround yourself with. And as I'm continuing to speak, last night I was laying in bed and I was like, I was hearing myself say the word ritual in bed, and I was like, rich Yule, Yule time, rich money. How ironic. This is what I love about words, is you can find meaning in everything, and also see the play and the way that the spell casting has been, like I say, the casting of the spell, it's like literally like a net over us with these words. And I mean, I can go into so many different directions with the rabbit hole regarding Babylon, the babble, and all these languages. I mean, I can't speak for every other language, but the English language, when you look at the words, it's incredible how you can break them down and come into this, oh my gosh, I would have never seen that had I not had the eyes open wide to see, the willingness to see it, especially. And the wow factor of like not getting upset. I mean, we always get upset at first when we feel we've been deceived, when we've all been influenced. And it's like, wow, I didn't know. But when you know better, you can do better. And so it's like, okay, so I gotta go through the grieving process of, for example, every year something happens, and the holidays make it stand out more because it's supposed to be a celebratory time. So when something traumatic happens, why is it that so many people go into depression? Because they haven't healed those traumas that occurred. And so what I was saying about, it's like a year-long Groundhog's Day, because you're repeating what I personally feel like after a certain point of your life becomes going through the ritual of constantly going through motions. I grew up Catholic, so you'd go to the church and it was stand up, sit down, kneel, stand up, sit down, kneel. It was kind of comical. I used to joke about it when I was a kid. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like a workout, but it's the same thing with the reinforcement of ritual. The more we do it, the harder it is to get out of it. So that's why when people wake up to the different things, the deceptions in life that cause, like, you have to reflect on it, or you can go through the numbing, it's like, wow, there comes the depression, because again, it's a grieving process. So when you wake up to lies in your life that for all you've ever known, all of a sudden it's been completely demolished. Like, oh, you mean to tell me I've been celebrating all of this all these years, and now today I wake up and I'm told that it's contrary, it's the opposite. People have to really be honoring of their hearts and gentle with themselves, because when you wake up to things that you've always revered and thought were righteous, let's say, and then one day you wake up and you find out they were all lies, that it's even the evil that we claim to be so against, like, I'm supposed to be doing the right thing. And when you think you've been doing the right thing, and then one day you wake up and you find out you've been actually supporting the one thing you felt you were actually against, which I don't like the for or against, because it's the same energy. But to try to think that any of us ever know the right thing, and then wake up and be told everything you ever thought was the right thing is actually contrary. I think the world is really waking up to that. And I think a lot of depression is coming as a result of it. Whether in their own lives, not necessarily talking about holidays and religion and all that, but everything's being affected right now. And everybody's having something shake them up to wake them up. And so I can say that I can honor a person who chooses to celebrate the way they celebrate, because I'm not here to burst someone's bubble. And I can have the compassion because I myself have had to wake up to things where I'm like, you know what? It has to feel aligned with me. I don't have to do something that doesn't feel right. But that doesn't mean I should also turn around and make someone feel bad for something that at the time they feel strongly for or against, right? So I always try to be as humble and supportive of people, no matter what walk of life they choose to traverse, right? I have my opinions, but see, I'm okay with that, but I don't want to enforce or opinions. We all have them, but do I have to speak them up? Do I have to make others understand? No, I don't. And it's been a very humbling life as it is for me, that there were times where I was very much, like I say, defending my BS, my belief systems, and going, oh shoot, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. How many of us have had that in our lives? Probably every single one of us has, but how humble and willing have we been to apologize or own the fact that maybe we were wrong? It's that, like I said, you know better, you do better. You can't expect everybody is going to figure everything out all at once just because you did. So, sometimes we wake up and we're like, oh my God, I have to preach it from the mountaintops, and everybody else should be aware of this. And did you know? And you know what? It sucks, but sometimes other people have to figure it out for themselves. And it's not because they need to suffer. It's because they have to be willing to see it. So our first rational mind thinking is, I want to save the world because I don't want them to suffer the way that I suffered. And I endured so much. And then you go out there and you're trying to get people to understand and see what you see, preach the word, whatever walk of life it is you're trying to, bring to people's attentions. And then in the end, it's like, you realize you create your own suffering by trying to force others to not suffer. See the paradox there? So you think you're doing right, when in reality, it's not your place to judge. And I can keep on going back to that one section of the Untethered Soul that I did the reading on, where I found it ironic that even in that one chapter, here Michael Singer is speaking about, well, who do you think God would want to hang out with? The one who's complaining about all of his creations, or the one who's actually, celebrating and excited and sees all the gifts in it? I mean, the reality is it's not that God judges, it's humans, it's man. Man's the one who created any form of judgment and continues to create the fear around judgment upon something that doesn't actually tangibly exist that we can even compare to. So God's going to look, in my opinion, at every single aspect of life, because if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all. God is in all the details. God's going to look at it. And if you were the one complaining, it's going to say, because I designed it that way. And that's, thank you, because I wanted to feel that, even though it sucks for you, because you're in that judgment, that polarity. God sees neutrality. It's like, well, that's just an experience. So I can continue, but I'll take a breath.
Right. And perspective is so key. If you see all the negative, that's the kind of life you're going to have. And we have a Christmas surprise here with us. We have James. Hey, James.
James came to visit you?
No, he's on this call.
Oh, hi, James.
Hi. It's been quite an eventful few days. I can definitely back up what you've just said, Lana. There's such a thing as remote viewing.
Mm,
Which takes an awful lot of energy, and is somehow, to me, it feels like it's forced.
mm,
You're trying to put it away. But when it comes the other way, wow.
mm,
It's unlocked quite a lot. I'm still in the emotional processing at the moment. So this has been a weird year. It's like both solstice, both equinox, I've been hit, and it's like, wow. It always seemed, this started on the afternoon of the 20th, and it's almost like flu-like symptoms, and it's like, oh, here we go. To get this now, I know what this is. This matches the pattern of the other 3, and it starts with, like, the body is just all your joints aching, and then it's like, wow. It's like what I've listened to with the astrology. It's like, well, this is all going on inside as well, and like, no wonder this is so. It just leaves you feeling physically drained.
mm-hmm.
But I can't complain about it either. Yeah, that was the point I was going to make. A perfect example, it would be from a point of view of someone who's of a particular religion, and they're out there on the street and they're trying to convert everybody. So this is a totally interactive realm. So it does seem to work in, well, if this is what you want, then this is what you'll be presented with. So if you're from that perspective of this is the correct religion, the rest of the world is wrong, well, the external reality is going to give you some work to do. If you and say, go on, then you try and convert everybody to the way you think and the way about things, and good luck with that one. Oh dear. Sorry about that. Yeah, so it also seems to work like in the 1984 film Terminator, where the machine is in a sort of like bed sit, and the guy knocks on the door who's coming around to clean the room, and he says, have you got a dead cat in there because of the smell? Basically, this Terminator is like living tissue over a metal chassis, so it'll smell like gangrene. And the response is, you see the response options come up as if you're viewing from the inside of the Terminator, like it's a computer screen. It's got various answers, and you select one. And this reality seems to be very much whatever frequency you're on, the frequency being the frequent keys, will then sort of open up doorways. So one example would be, you'll hear a song maybe 100 times, and then that 101st time, you'll now hear something very different in that song because your frequency's changed. So I could say, oh, I feel like crap at the moment, but I've actually done basically a totally unintended 3-day water fast, basically. So it's not all bad.
Yeah, that was smart to do a water fast. That's the best thing to do if you're detoxing is what you're doing. I mean, that's what, when we get colds and flus, it's our body detoxing, and that's a good thing. better out than in. So I'm glad you're feeling better. So good
Well,
deal. You'll be back to.
I'm on the mend. It seems to be sort of following the pattern of Jupiter on the astrology at the moment. So tomorrow I should be back to shall we say normal. Yeah, it's quite sort of exhausting. I was sort of really I've just slept most of the last 2 or 3 days. It's been quite a roller coaster, but wow, I'm glad of the process, and it's also how we are all like flower of life patterns. And if you see the drawings of like a flower of life, it's an optical illusion of like you can't see which is the flower, because the petal of that one joins the petal of is also the petal of the next one to it. And it seems to be that it's our frequencies and vibrations, because I've found connections to people through frequency, to even to the point where one of them has sort of picked up on what I'm feeling. I'm picking up on a feeling of collapsed lungs and many other bits and pieces. So yeah, we're definitely connected on a frequency level, well and truly. That's sort of been one of the big sort of revelations of these last 2 or 3 days. This is like, wow. So what a beautiful experience.
Well, that's great that you see it as a beautiful experience and you're not playing victim, because that's something Lana and I were just talking about before we started recording, of how so many people just stay in that victim mentality and they never ever see their part in manifesting what they're going through and what they went through. And so much of it really does go back to frequency and how you resonate. Even, I was saying, well, everybody has some part to play in, every outcome. And I said, well, maybe not if you got attacked, assaulted from behind, but even then you have a part because of your resonance, so yeah, it's all about frequency.
Yes. I also see that, well, I've described it, this experience of life, as being like you're given a menu with options for what you want to start, a main course and dessert, as it were. But I feel it's sort of, there's another layer to that. So depending on past lives is then what options you get this time around. So there may be a sort of a limited choices, which will be dependent on previous lives. But clearly, from what I can see, time is cyclical rather than linear. So it may be, from our mortal linear perspective, or actually from something that we would see as being in the future, is now being played out now, because there is only now anyway. But hopefully that sort of makes sense.
So Lana, what do you think?
Sorry,
Lana?
I'm here. So listening to James as he was speaking, and as I was hearing him speak, I was thinking also, astral projection has been something I've done since I was a kid, completely unconscious, not knowing that's what they called it. Because literally I remember the times when I was younger and I'd get woken up because I was falling, those types of things that were going on. And because I am such a very vivid, deep dreamer, that I go places that I'm like, oh yeah, I wake up more exhausted in the mornings than I am when I go to sleep, because of all the work I do. And the other thing I was going to add to the symptoms, right? So the integration of the experience. So what you described with the physical body aches and such is what part of what I have described and explained. And I also like to remind myself, so me saying this is also reminding myself, which is why we say, you know, communication, when we speak, about 80% of what we speak is usually for ourselves to hear, because we work things out through our own voice and just communicating with others. It's always that mirroring. So when I get the physical aches and the body aches, and I've been getting them a lot lately too, and I'm doing a lot of body work, which is something I forgot to mention in my last video. When I do a lot of body work, a lot of stuff is shifting and shaking. So it's the emotional release that is occurring too. And it happens with our astral projection too, to where if you go down for the count like that and you're doing all that detoxing, it's mostly because what's happened is you just went through an energetic shift and you're getting an upgrade. And so those body aches are your body adjusting to those new frequencies. And so people like to think, you know, because we've been conditioned to believe that, you know, we were just talking about that, Julia said it, we don't get sick from other people. Our body says, hey, we need rest. And, you know, if you don't listen as it's happening, it will take you out. And rest does not mean that you caught something. It's that you weren't paying attention to your body that's always exhibiting, hey, I need this, I need that. You know, if you tap into your body's wisdom, your body will always tell you what you need. The body will always tell on the mind on which you are continuously fixated on that maybe doesn't align, you know? And so I love when people talk about body aches, because to me, that sounds like holy shift. You know, that's, to me, I'm reminded, especially because you mentioned the astral projection. And I know a lot of people probably have no idea that they even do it, because I believe we do. I have this theory between what I've heard from other people and also what I've sensed in myself. You know, the whole idea that when you close your eyes and go to sleep at night, which is the dream, this waking life, or when we close our eyes to go to sleep, right? Like, I love that paradox and that consideration, and just that's a conversation that's like, I don't know. And do you dream within dreams? Because I've had that happen too. And the layers. And that when you think about you know, you brought up the movie Terminator, and I was just reminded about the connection between movies. A lot of people may not be aware that Sarah Connor, the mother, you know, that she had she was the one that the Terminator was trying to protect and all that, that Neo from the Matrix is the son of Sarah Connor, and that all those movies are connected. I was like, oh. So I don't know. That was just a tie into everything he was talking about there, James. But I'm glad to hear you're doing better. And I'd love to hear more about your astral projection if you do recall it and you want to share.
Yeah, it's you're gonna like this one, Lana. Which is the dream? Well, we are in 2 days world. So which is the dream? They're both a form of days. There's a conscious days and an unconscious days. One where we're trapped in prison bars, which are horizontal because everything's flipped in this reality, or turned on its side. And then, as is the way Rudolf Steiner talks about it, when you sleep, the etheric body is controlling all the organs, the physical body is resting, the astral body and the eye organization go off, and yeah, you get, sometimes you think, I don't know what I did last night, but wow, I was definitely busy because I don't feel rested at all. It's like I've had 8 hours solid sleep uninterrupted or whatever, but I feel exhausted. So I listened to what the body was saying from those first symptoms going on previous experiences this year. And it's like, well, the body is saying to rest. That's the way it communicates. It gives you this feeling of you don't want to do anything, you feel lifeless. So that's one way the body's talking to it. And it's like, I can't face eating anything. I thought, oh, I know what you're saying. What you're saying is you want me to do a water fast and just sort of just do a shutdown process. And I thought, yeah, I can do that. I'll go with what the body's telling me now. So it's yeah. By tomorrow, I think. Well, not feel. I know everything's going to be back to normal again. So it's just seems to be a micro macro of the pattern of the sun at this time of year. 'Cause it's like 3.5 days, and then I'm sort of back on my feet again. I mean, it's been an effort just doing the laundry, changing a duvet cover. It's like that's it. I've had it. I can't do anything else. And then, of course, the first 2 nights, it was like the bedding is drenched. I woke up sweating, but I thought I'm going to get this out. But this is something. Well, most people do a process of this in the physical world. For example, with any rubbish, you don't take every individual piece out to the outside bin or trash can. You make sure there's enough to make the journey worthwhile, so you bag it up and take it out in one go. That's what these physical bodies do. The accumulated toxins, they're now saying there's enough there. Emergent exit all exits, a bit like a cinema when there's a fire goes off. Suddenly all these emergency exits suddenly open, and that's basically what the body's doing. Oh yeah.
And you know, what's funny is as you started speaking about the dreams and everything, what I had just said about which is the dream and what is the waking life. I wonder if we're just all been put under a sleeping spell over these past, I don't know how many years now, since it feels like we literally, and I don't know how many times it's happened, but I've felt literal changes in the realities, the parallel lives. And there was that TV show, Fringe, I think it was called. Did you ever hear of that movie, the TV series? There were two parallel realities, and they had the same people, but they were different, like they could cross over, but they weren't operating in the same manner across. It was like mirroring each other, the duality. And I sometimes wonder about how, like we always say that so much of these movies, these TV series are telling us little tidbits of truth. And so when we go back to the dream, did we go to sleep and one morning we just woke up to some other sleep spell? Because it's palpable, it's obvious to me. Although, interestingly enough, it feels like the right people connect that are still connected. And then every once in a while, you'll notice that somebody's kind of like off, that some people call them the NPCs, whatever, but or the background characters. It's an interesting time we're in right now.
No doubt about that. And, I really think it is the end times, like the end of this simulation and the graduation for the people who have decided not to stay in this material realm and have realized that we do create our own realities. And, we're here practicing because we continue creating when we leave this realm, wherever we go. And with the dream stuff, that's really interesting because I always have like I have like this situation in my dreams where I'm always like helping people like move through some kind of lines or whatever, and just organizing which way they should go and giving people rations and stuff like that. And it's always been this recurring kind of little thing that just shows up there. So like you said, a lot of people are out in the astral and don't realize it, don't remember it. So sometimes I do totally feel that way. And there was this other thing when I was a little girl. I used to hang out with this, they were like an older couple, but we would just talk about really philosophical things. And even one time I was like, "What is consciousness?" And they're like, "Well, consciousness just drives everything. It's like, you don't have to think, it does it." And I was like, and they said it would make you burp, and I was like, "Well, consciousness made me burp," and then I burped. We all laughed. And then I remember I was with these people, and we were at their house, and we heard like plane coming and dropping bombs, and so we all went and got in that position for a bomb like they taught us in school, cover our head. And that was the last thing I ever remembered spending time with these people. And my parents, they owned bars, and we had a lot of aunties and uncles, of course, through their friends, because anyone that had kids, they would hang out with them. So we had a lot of different people that were in my life, and that weren't related to me. But it was really weird about that one because after that one incident, they just disappeared from my life. And it was when I was really young. So yeah, I didn't really put it all together, but I still remember it. So yeah, there's way more going on than any of us probably really know. And some people are way more in touch with that. Have you checked out that lady from the Tree of Knowledge, Sonia?
I have, and I so resonate with her. I love her. She's so adorable. I love her little laugh too, because everything she says, I'm like, I'm totally on board with that, and it's exactly how I feel. The
Yeah,
last
she
video,
has the best witch laugh ever.
well, and I love when she was saying exactly how I feel about the holidays. It's like, celebrate. Don't feel bad about anything, but it's an intentional thing. It's like, what you need to know, what you're celebrating for you, not because you're going through the motions. That's how I feel. Like, how much of my life was going through the motions, and that in itself is unconscious. You're just, like I said, you're going through the Groundhog Day every single day in a year's time, where they've got ritualistic holidays. And James, I was joking with the word rich Yule, right? Money Yule time. I'm like, wow, like, we have been basically put under the spell to follow these these habits, these rituals, and nobody ever questions them. And I'm over here going, why are we doing this? Other than the fact that, especially this year, I feel like commercialization been pushed more than anything else. And yet, at the same time, we've been threatened with, I don't know, transportation, access to goods, money for cost of gas. And I'm like, I don't know, over here, it feels like it's just the same as it always is. It doesn't feel like anything's changed. It just sounds more like fear mongering with, the propaganda. And yeah, I just look through history, and I remember even some of my trainings when I was in the military, and I just shake my head and go, how can people not recognize the fear mongering, the constant, it's psych 101. You hear it enough and you start to believe it. It doesn't mean, like somebody I can't even imagine. I haven't had a TV for years. I can't remember the last time I had a TV. I'm going to go up to spend time with my dad, and he's got TVs. And so we'll watch movies, but you can put the noise. How many people's houses, they've got TVs on just for noise, and they'll be like, oh, it's just on for whatever. And they don't realize that they're taking in that information. It's subtly, it's the subliminal meanings, the digital frequencies, everything that's passed through that people are not aware of or conscious. And that yet they're being literally fed through their senses, because that's how you take in data. And then they don't understand why all of a sudden they have a thought, like this. Again, we can go back to meditation. Meditation is to still yourself enough to become the observer and witness what unconscious thoughts are that are running your show, that are your basic program that is driving your life. And so you've got to make that unconscious conscious, or you will continue to be the victim of your own self and your unconscious programming. So the idea that there are people who walk around and say, well, I can't handle sitting and, my mind is too busy. And yet those are the same people 9 times out of 10 that'll have a TV or, the news or even the radio stations. You hear some of these commercials and you're like, every once in a while I go somewhere, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine listening to that all the time. And yet that's part of that unconscious mind chatter that people don't realize because they're in such a habitual lifestyle. So it is very fascinating to see where we're at right now. And at the same time, more of us are more on the same wavelength for a reason. And curiosity, doesn't kill the cat. It's the satisfaction it brings it back, right? I'm just grateful that, we can have these kinds of conversations, and I'm not even worried what anybody thinks about what I think, because I'm just postulating and putting ideas out there. And in the end, I can be wrong about something, but maybe I'm still on the same track and the same path. And I'm just getting more aware through the inside of what's going on the outside. That when you go within, you're going to notice the mirroring of what's been going on outside of you all the time. And it's really a gift that we all have. It's just unfortunate so many are afraid of it. And that conditioning of fear things that you don't know, yet you have a whole lot of not knowing that goes on within you. So the planting of seeds should come from within and not just allow anybody to infiltrate and plant seeds in you. This is the consciousness. This is the alignment with your integrity and your own self, is actually being very cognizant and intentional with the data that you take in through your five senses. So these are the times where, if people haven't been aware of that, and I already see it happening, is people really needing the support to recognize these simple little things that are with them every day. Yeah, we're affected by everything around us. It's just how conscious are we and intentional in what we take in of it.
Right. We're so telepathic too. And James, he talked about that a lot with babies, and just babies with each other. We don't even need language or words. And that's something that Sol and I were talking about, I think, about being watched. Everybody's worried about being spied on by all the technology. But think of when we have telepathy, our telepathy skills honed. And yeah, well, these are all skills that we have. We've just lost touch with how to exercise those skills. And then you practice them and you get really good at them. And you can talk to people telepathically anytime you want. You just set the intention, you get in a really quiet, state with your mind, hopefully a theta state. And you send that message, and you can, work out things in the astral real simply like that. And also another thing that Tom Campbell always tells people, encourages them to do, is just do healings on other people and watch outcomes. But yeah, we all have these abilities, and we're all realizing it now. So it's such a cool time, because in the past there was, pockets of people, it seems like, that would know about it. But now the whole world is, has access to this information. Some don't want to hear it, like you said, but the ones that do, man, they can take this, and there's no stopping us now.
Well, and to add to the telepathy and the mental, the ability to be, for your thoughts to be heard and such, that technology exists. And that conversation has been around for a while. Some of us have talked about, I was just thinking this, and then I see an ad in social media or an app, right? They have this technology. And again, another, not to put it out there as a scare tactic whatsoever, this is why it's so important to know and be aware of your thoughts. Because the average person, their thoughts are unconscious. Their thoughts can be anything that reveals them. And my first jobs out of military were, I was actually interviewing for data collection for them to learn your behavior. This was in 2002, 2003. I knew about this stuff a long time ago. So that's why I find it fascinating that people would ever turn around and say, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, I just speak from my personal experience. I'm not here to prove myself to you, especially having come from the background I come from. And so this telepathy and stuff, I mean, hello, Men Who Stare at Goats, movies again, revealing all the truth. They've been doing this for a long time. This stuff has always fascinated me since I was a little girl. The fact that they've known for who knows how long, I think it goes back even further. And when it boils down to it, this is why the individual has to reclaim and take back their own life, to master their breath, master their mind, to master their life in the domain. If you don't get the basics down, then you are prime picking for prey. That is when they will infiltrate and they will harness and utilize your thoughts, because you're not conscious of them anyway. So they can plant seeds within your consciousness because you're not conscious of it. And they can also take from it. So this is why meditation is so important. This is why mindfulness practice is so important. This is something I've never actually spoken about until just now, that people don't understand the importance of why I say and do what I do with regards to master your breath, master your mind, get present and aware. Because if you don't do it, it will be done for you. It always comes down to, if you want true autonomy, where everybody's always talking about serenity, you got to start with your mind. Because if the mind is mastering you, you've lost. You need to master that mind. You need to be present. You need to come into the moment and acknowledge and claim all the stuff that goes on up in there. Because if you don't claim it, again, it's going to be used against you. And it's so funny because when like I said, I've been doing a lot of body work for years anyway, but when I go to a neuromuscular doctor, and to me, it's all fascinating because I just connect more dots about my own body and the work that I do as well. And we were discussing how the head and it's, it's head alignment. And I always talk about this in my classes, that when your body is out of alignment, you're going to feel imbalance, you're going to feel pain. But the head, when you notice your head is jutted forward, for every inch your head is jutted forward from the plumb line over the shoulders, what that's doing is putting 10 pounds of pressure for each inch forward in between the shoulder blades. But it's also funny because it shows a person who's anticipating the future. It's also showing getting ahead. Think about the play on words. Literally, your head is trying to jut out in front. That's when you know your mind is running the show. Anybody whose head cannot stay straight and neutral in their body alignment is essentially showing you through your body language that person is really heavily in their head. It literally imbalances them and outweighs their body because they're not straight. Their head is jutted forward, so they're going to fall off their course. It's all connected. And this is why, like I say, I can connect the dots. I can see the patterns. I can look at a person and I can read them just looking at their alignment, their body. I mean, mostly because I've learned it through my own body, and that's the best way to do it. But it's just fascinating because we have everything we need to know if we're willing to see it. We're willing to feel it. We're willing to actually be present in the moment with it. Because again, like I say, your energy, your power, it only lies in the present. When you get hijacked by the mind to go into the past or into the future, you have now fragmented and scattered your energy because you've given it to the past or the future and it's not present with you. So every time that we find ourselves in a thought, remember, thoughts are problems seeking to be solved, giving the mind an opportunity to make itself relevant and important. Mind has to basically run the show in its mind, literally. That it's all such a play. And so the more you notice, oh, I'm in my thoughts. Oh, there we go again. It becomes more like, oh, there you go again. No. Breathe into the moment. Where am I feeling it in my body? Because the body's always going to indicate where the misalignment in the mind is. Okay, so I have this heavy belief that's going on, and it keeps trying to run the show. And, I'm fearful of this or that. And why is that? Is it true? Is it relevant? Is it your thought? Most people don't even stop to think, is this even my thought? Where did this come from? Because it could be a voice from your past. It could be a parental figure. It could be, somebody you admired. Most of the voices that we hear in our heads are people we put so much priority to, gave more of our power away to. We considered them more relevant and than ourselves. It's not even our voice. And then we started to create that dialogue, or we kept the dialogue going like a record player, right? Or it's skipping. And we never stopped to question if it was even true for us, because it became habitual, and it got the grooves got in, So it's very important, more so now than ever. I mean, no matter how much you want to, go down rabbit holes, the biggest rabbit hole that will be successful in you reclaiming your life, your autonomy, your serenity, whatever you want to say, freedom, your real freedom lies in knowing yourself 100% thoroughly, in and out. Because everything outside of you is just a distraction. Everything outside of you is going to be a reflection of what's going on within you. Most people go without because they're afraid of what's within them. And the irony is they're going without to a world where it's trying to keep you in the place of fear. And it's like, wow, why are you going there? Why are you going into the fear spaces? You got enough of stuff going on inside of you. That's either reinforcing the grooves, or something will maybe spark you and inspire you to go within. So it's a push-pull. It's the basic challenge of life. It's basically the game of life. And it's the come back to self. Everything you seek is actually you. You are always seeking yourself.
Very well said. Yeah, lots to ponder there. James, how are you doing over there?
Yeah, from the way I describe this reality, the world is a stage. And upon that stage, you've now got a stock exchange. And just like they've shown for years on television, you've got all these people on mobile phones, and it's like constant chatter, all out trying to outbid each other. And everything external of you is basically a stock exchange of scripts. So every event, any conversation, it's like become a very discerning act. And it's like, do I want to take that part? Do I want to play in that drama? And I've found what they're not lying when they say it's humanity that is causing all the problems. It really is, but it's from suggested scripts. This is the trouble, and this negative default programming reaction to everything and anything in the world. But at the same time, there are huge clues. I mean, emergency. It's not a emergency reaction unit. It's an emergency response unit. And it is all external reflections. It's giving you clues, but it also seems to be your vibration that you're on will then reveal so much more. And I'd go with the sort of analogy. It's more than an analogy, really, because it's what we basically are. It's the same as the magnet. We are the sort of the dielectric. So the most important thing to find is your own gatekeeper. That's your discernment. It's what you let in. All the suggested scripts that are taken in through the ears and through the eyes. It's then weighing up and saying, yeah, okay, I see that's happening. But I'm going to remain indifferent. I'm going to remain different within. It's really, because it's always given that, well, as far as I'm aware, it's there's always been this sort of negative connotation with the word indifferent. But I feel that's just one side of it. It's also referring to being different within inside oneself, which the opposite of that would be to go with the masses, with the herd, as it were. And it seems very much to work on this. If you can keep people in the lowest vibration, that their energy is then being harvested. And I would say it goes as far as has an effect on the weather. I feel it is human energy that is actually powering this entire reality. And there is a certain element or faction or a certain polarity of it that needs it to be that way to survive. Well, actually, but no, both. You can't have one without the other anyway. So, but it comes down to finding the balance within oneself, which then means also finding that gatekeeper, remaining neutral to it, and just watching the beauty of the timing rather than this negative aspect of time seen in a linear sense of comparison to something that you want to come or something that has happened in the past. So yeah, it does come down to who's controlling the human energy. Are you self-governing, self-controlling, or are you being governed?
Yes, and we have to start being the sovereign beings that we are, and realize that we're the cause and not the effects of this reality, and just own that. And I like how Lana was talking about how important it is to go within, and when you go within, you won't have to go without, because you'll manifest whatever you need. And so many people are just so resistant to doing that self-observation, and I guess because they're afraid of what they might find. But it's I don't know what I don't understand that one. Just some people just avoid it at all costs when it's such a liberating thing to do when you get through it all.
I like what James said about the weather, and I do 100% agree with you. I believe astrology, as much as I love to listen to it, because for me, I don't see it as a death sentence. So I feel like, somebody I watched years ago, I can't remember who it was exactly, but they made a comment about how astrology was essentially the energetic weather patterns. And I agree wholeheartedly, because I resonated with that, because that's how I felt. Like I would look at the weather or the astrology as kind of a gauge. I don't see it as, oh, can't go out, because most of the times, like I said, and I've said in previous videos, I already know whether or not I want to go out into the world. I will stay home when I feel there's something off in the collective as much as possible, because I know myself. I know, ooh, I feel something's in the air. I'm going to limit where I go, and especially with traffic and whatever it is. And astrology essentially is giving you a guide. It said that back in the days, the astrologers basically mapped the planets and matched it to what was going on in the environments. It wasn't the other way around. It wasn't that the planets influence us. It's synchronistic, it's symbiotic. It's like they're just basically showing you what is, okay, yeah, you can predict, what planets are going to be doing this, that, and the other. And you got a full moon, and you got this, and you got the solstices, and you got all this stuff. Yeah, but ultimately, it's still a play between the heavens and the earth, as we could say, right? It's the conscious and the unconscious. Again, we're in duality here, people. We're living in polarity. You got to have the push and the pull. So if cosmos and the heavens are doing one thing, we're doing this over here. they're playing with each other. You can't see one affecting the other. And so this is where, again, we can go back to the victim versus victor stories. The victim will think that it's circumstances they can't control, when the reality is it's look at what's going on and adjust and adapt, course correct, move your sail in the direction that you have the wind behind you going in the direction you need to go, versus why are you still trying to go up against, why are you trying to swim upstream against the current? Life is about going in the direction. Yes, we're talking about going in the flow that is in alignment with your soul. I have a whole, when I start my practice in the morning, I have a whole, guide, let me be guided by the flow of my own soul. Like, let that be what supports my day. Because my mind's going to come up with one thing, but my soul's going to maybe be choosing something else. And of course, it's always going to be bigger and better than, that's what part of what I say is like, let it be bigger and better than anything I could ever imagine, want, wish, or desire. Because ultimately, that's presence versus fearful of the past or fearful of the future. Presence is, I'm aware of energies around me, and I'm just going to allow myself to be nudged and guided from within, because the internal guidance system is the body and all the stuff that you feel. The mind will go, it'll try to get hijacked. It'll try to hijack you, the let it go. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, nothing does anything to us. It's the BS. It's the belief system. It's the mind again, hijacking you and telling you a story that you're buying into. Again, seeking, to solve problems that are just ideas and constructs, just stories that aren't even real. And again, like I just said about, you need to be so cognizant, so aware of your unconscious mind patterns and old traumas and whatever it is that's still going on in you that's influencing your life. Because again, if you're not cognizant, and these days we're learning more and more the technology that exists, if you're not owning your life, it will be hijacked and owned. And you really, really want to know what is your truth, what is your internal gnosis, knowing, because the world right now is revealing itself in a way that people are like, well, I don't understand how this happened, because you weren't in the present. You weren't present to the environment. You weren't paying attention to nature. You weren't paying attention to yourself. You got all the signs, but you dismissed them. You avoided them. You weren't present. You were jumping ahead or hanging out in the past. And these are really powerful times for the people that are aware and awake and present. And that's a skill. That is something we all need to harness and nurture in ourselves. Nobody can do it for us. We're not victims. In order to master your life, you need to be present in it. And numbing out is not an option anymore, because numbing out makes you prey in whatever way they want to infiltrate. And it doesn't take much. I mean, look around, repeat something enough and people believe it, right? They might have been against it and they don't understand, but that they all of a sudden changed their thought patterns. They were willing to secede their own beliefs, to compromise themselves, their own integrity, their own being, because, well, I just, whatever the Wetico, whatever the mind virus was that desired to take over. Quite fascinating. And I have a lot of compassion for people that have not yet chosen, although it is not, for the weak of heart, literally, it is a path that is so much more liberating to, okay, you got to traverse a little pain, you got to feel a little discomfort, but it doesn't linger longer. Whereas the people that choose to deny it and reject it, they're suffering the most. And they don't even realize they're choosing their suffering and that they are the creators of it. So on the one hand, it sucks because you can't make everybody see, or understand. Yet at the same time, all you can do is be the example through your inspired living, and you just do what you do naturally, because you will spark people just by them witnessing, going, like the joke, me and my sisters, we always would seem to go someplace together with my mother, and there'd be nobody. And all of a sudden there'd be people all around us reaching for things that we were touching. It was just bizarre, the energy that we would attract sometimes. And then you'd be in a line to check out at the store, and there's a line behind us, and it's like, where did these people come from? it's like people staring at us going, I want what she has, like it's funny. And at the same time, I realized it might have been annoying to a certain point, but then I realized too, it's because of the way that we danced and played with each other's energies. Like with my sisters and my mom and even my dad, there's a playfulness that attracts other people who want to play. Now, they may not be in a playful mode. They may just be curious and not even realize why they're curious. I mean, where I live in Clearwater, Florida, this was something I wanted to share. I feel exceptionally blessed. Yes, there's crazy weather patterns going on. But do you know how many times they've told us we were going to get hit by all these major storms? And Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater area here, there's a Seminole Indian blessing here. Now, people are moving here in the droves, big time. They have been, they still do, even before all these 2 years or so, and almost 3. And I can't count how many times I go to my favorite bookstore where, I get a lot of my crystals, my jewelry, Serenity now. And it's so funny. We'll have these conversations with people that walk in. They're like, I just moved here and I don't know why. And we all look at them and smile, and we're like, we do. You'll figure it out shortly, because those stories are so common here. The people just energetically are drawn to the vortex, to this area that has a special energy. And I will say that something shifted in this past year, sometime in August, I'm not sure, maybe even July, I started noticing a dampening of the energies here. Now, what was interesting, before I took the trip to Europe, I left on the 29th of August. That weekend before, I just had my day of just relaxing. And I do this I usually do at least once a week, but I took my walk along the waterfront, and that's the day that I found three feathers that were part of my path. And every day I'd find feathers on my trips, and give or take maybe 3 days, maybe. And I just noticed things that were coming in, and the energies and the messages I was receiving was, things are changing right now. And there's that part of me that says, yeah, I'm in the middle of a renovation and I've got all this stuff going on here, but how much longer am I meant to actually stay here? As I have always known that it was at some point I would leave, whether it's to come back or to leave for good, I don't know. But since I came back, I took that same walk, and, I take that walk very regularly. And I'm like, wow, something came in and it's heavy. And it doesn't belong here. And I have an energetic way of just like clearing space and stuff. And it lingered for a while, and it's come and gone, but it's palpable, and it's quite intriguing, because especially for those of us who live in this area, I have conversations with people, and I just like to listen to hear what other people are observing. I don't always share what I share. I'm selective with my audience and the people that I speak with. I do have, fortunately, a lot of good people that like to have these conversations, but just be aware of your surroundings even more. But that's because you're aware of your internals, right? Like I'm so attuned to myself that I notice what's going on outside. But not everybody can say that they are that tuned and tapped into what is going on around. But again, that goes back to self-awareness, the practices, the mindfulness, the mindset. You have to know thyself so well that you can discern between your stuff and other people's stuff. Because whenever I hear someone say, oh, I'm an empath, I feel people's stuff, I'm like, oh, my heart goes out to you, because you don't understand. There is the healed empath, and there is still the unhealed, traumatized empath. And a lot of people walk around with this empath label like a badge of honor. And the reality is they're not healed within themselves, and they can't discern between what is really truly theirs that is healed and what is unhealed that they're picking up being triggered by another. Why do we connect the way we do to people? Is it through a healed space or an unhealed space? Are you still playing the victim to an old story, and then you meet someone and you're commiserating over the same situation, same storyline? You're not helping each other evolve. An empath is there to have the compassion and not feed the fuel of that victimhood story, to feed that trauma to continue to linger longer. The truly healed empath goes, oh, wow, I feel you because I've been there. But let me help uplift you and take and energetically buoy you up and out of that space. We're not here to drag each other down, but a lot of times people think that because they connected over something traumatic, that brings others up. And in reality, that's actually not where we want to go. We don't want to keep rehashing and reliving the past. It's the old way, it's the old patriarchy that wants people to stay stuck in those lower vibrations, those lower energies that are so low on the scales of consciousness that you don't evolve, you know? So just keeping in mind, anybody who hears this recording, that understand that you need to know thyself so well that you're not identifying through others, which is the mirror, and thinking with a self-righteous empathic mindset, because I'm going to say it's self-righteous because, oh, I feel things. Well, hell yeah, you feel things because you're human. Do you know what humans are? They're extrasensory beings. We're meant to be sensitive. So when someone says, oh, you're just too sensitive, that's why I joke about and say, yeah, because I'm supposed to be. That's part of the whole human existence of having 5 senses. You should be sensitive. And if I was insensitive, you'd tell me, wouldn't you? It's just, you got to remember the play on the words. This life is a game, and you can find the humor, and you can find the drama, and you can find the trauma. You can find it all. Choose what you participate in. Yeah, if you want to go in there and you want to whine, go for it. But milk it, like really go deep. It's all good. It's not bad. There is no bad. It's just your mindset around it. It's your rejection of what is. It's what is what is meant to be. So feel it fully. Don't reject anything, because what you reject within yourself. That boomerang effect. Every judgment you make is really a judgment on yourself. We're always comparing ourselves to other people, hence the empath thing too, energetically or just story-wise. We are always comparing ourselves to people, places, and things, because that's how we learn, either through direct involvement in a situation and observing our inner dialogue, or visually, outwardly, we're seeing the mirror of what's showing up to us. Whether or not we're owning that the mirror is even part of ours is the key. And there's so much we can go into that. It really is a choice. It's always a choice. Are you going to go in with the willingness to see through your real eyes, both eyes, and really just be present? Because that's the gift. That's the gift of life. That's the gift of the now, the moment that you recognize that the now is where all of your power resides. You can claim it at any time.
Excellent point. Well, I thought James was going to say something. I thought I heard him. But yeah, it's all about being present and aware. And it's really that simple.
I was just thinking from something you said earlier, Lana, about the ritual. I also hear in that the writ, things are committed to paper, and paper is basically a dead tree that's been sliced. so it's committed to death. But
Ooh,
I
ooh,
like, sorry.
paper print. Ooh, death. Ooh, that's real good, James.
Thank you. The other thing I think which I find to be a beautiful analogy is when you see this, what matters becomes material. So what should really matter you can express as our real essence, which would run up and down the spine. So if there is one rabbit hole to go into to find, to hit rock bottom, to find that foundation on which to build, well, that's shown as the 5 fused vertebrae. That is the rock bottom of the physical body. But all the other ones that are external, I've never come across anybody who's ever got to an answer and found the rock bottom of any other rabbit hole. But the internal one is the one that is guaranteed if you're prepared to take that sort of leap into the unknown, because it really is a leap into the unknown. It's like, well, my personal experience, and I can't even say it's the earliest one, it's sort of one of many ongoing ones, is like having a panic attack, not knowing that's what I'm experiencing the first time I had it. It's only afterwards I thought, oh, that must be what a panic attack is. And where that would lead to, that is incredible in itself. I'm trying to think when I first had one, that maybe about 10 years ago, possibly earlier. I'm not even sure now. I've basically got a fragmented mind of memories now. It's like I found the red button inside and pressed it to see what would happen, and I've got huge chunks of memory that I've got no clue on where I was, what I was doing, or anything, and I get disjointed bits. But people have said, "Doesn't that worry you?" And it's like, no, I'm not worried. It's like if I'm meant to know, it will come back. And I've had this conversation with people in the past when they've said about doing past life regressions. I said, bear in mind that may be shut off for a good reason, and you've got to be prepared. If you're going to do something like that, you may not like what you're gonna is going to be sort of reactivated in the mind, as it were. So a classic sort of analogy would be, you're in a car, the next thing you wake up, you're in a hospital bed, but the mind doesn't remember going through the windscreen. But would you want to remember something like that? The mind will shut that down on purpose. And this thing, like with Star Wars, use the Force. Yeah, let it work with you, but don't try and force it, because it will push back. And sometimes the way I said it, it's almost like a child. It's like you're pushing one way, and this energy seems to say, oh, you want to have a game of push and pull, and it's like, okay, then I'll match your frequency. And this seems to be the real thing with this whole experience of this reality, is whatever frequency you're on, this external reality will match that frequency. When you talk about tuning in, well, if you're on a certain signal, then it seems like this external world will tune into your frequency, and therefore you then see a world in a different way from many other people. So if they're on a very fear-based frequency, well, that's what they're going to see more of, because it's like you're feeling fear, so the reality will give you more to be fearful of. And then you realize about know thyself, know thy enemy. Well, if it's all about taking personal responsibility, where you're your own biggest enemy when you're letting the mind run the show instead of just going with what the body's saying. and then just being aware of all these external signs and what they're presenting. I'm going to cough now, so I'm going to stop. That's better. I'm a bit sort of croaky at the moment. It's part of this purging. But I'm not going down the route of taking something to suppress these bodily feelings, because I can now observe them and they're not life-threatening. I just don't feel great. But that's the body saying, just rest. It's nothing to try and overcome. It's something to work with. I have got this like little eye consciousness that's sort of looking up with its arms up in the air, saying, why aren't you frightened? Why aren't you being fearful? And it's like, I hear what you're saying. Now go and sit down. I've listened to what you said, and going on past experiences when I've listened to you before, you've led me down the wrong road. So I acknowledge these little thoughts and things that come up. And I feel this is another way of explaining this, is saying about darkness hides in the shadows. Well, if our lower consciousness, mortal mind, it seems to be very much like a child. The slightest little disturbance or change, it doesn't like it at all, and it will try and hide itself. But when you recognize your lower consciousness, it's got nothing to hide behind. So every move it makes, there is nowhere for it to hide. And it's like, I see you wherever you go. I see you. The spotlight's on you. And it gets easy to identify the bits within yourself. And I wouldn't swap any of this experience, because it's been such a wonderful teacher. And really, I've got to be more grateful for the bad things than the good things, because they've been the greatest teachers as well. So it's an amazing experience, really.
I can attest.
I was just going to say, we definitely learn more with adversity. Go ahead, Lana.
Oh, I was just agreeing, because it's so true. I've had it in my own personal experience. Pain has been my biggest teacher, and I've spoken a lot about that, because of the fact that there's purpose in our pain. And how many people turn their purpose, into, or their pain into a major, like, I mean, look at anybody who we admire, and I don't know, you can just bring up somebody that you just like, wow, they've really come a long way, and maybe they're even your hero in some way, shape, or form. I mean, my mom was my biggest hero. Just knowing that as much as she overcame adversity in her childhood, a lot of things that she could never come to grips and terms with, but my mom still kept a childlikeness about her, that she'd give a person the shirt off of her back. She would always do the right thing. She would take the harder route, just because she didn't want anybody to take away from the autonomy of her being able to do it. Like, it was actually, in a lot of times, I look at it and go, wow, she was so fearful of the old patriarchal, nobody ever does anything for free, so that, you're going to be obligated if somebody does something for you, in such a derogatory sense. Whereas she couldn't allow, versus just discerning those who would do things for the wrong reasons, kind of deal. A lot of times she'd deny even what might have been innocent, versus, like somebody who might try to take advantage of a situation. And I say this in the terms of, like, when we were kids and we needed help, or, or we needed money. But yet she'd be the first person to give people money when they needed it too, because she understood what it was like when we needed money. And I get it too, because that's how we grew up, is you do things because you know what it's like. what it's like to struggle or to suffer. And so you do it because you want to be able to see someone else get through their situation. And yeah, there are going to be people who take advantage of those kinds of things in life. But again, can you be your own hero? Can you be that person that steps up and really feels into the situation and goes, does this align? Does this feel right? If it feels good in your heart, then yes. But if your mind is trying to talk you out of it, then, that's where we're learning to discern the head that wants to run the show versus the heart that will always feel into the right frequency. Again, the heart is the electromagnetic. That is your battery. It's always going to bring you in the right direction. So many times I hear people say, oh, but my heart got me in trouble. It's like, no, your heart didn't get you in trouble. That was your ego. Your ego got busted because you didn't accept the terms and the situation in which you were in. Conscious or unconscious, spoken or unspoken, you also need to take ownership and responsibility for your own manipulative part in a situation where you had an expectation you were attached to. It was a dogmatic belief in the way that you wanted things to be. And because they didn't match the way you wanted things to be, your ego got busted. But most people won't own that. And that's very humbling to step back and go, ooh, I had an expectation. I didn't necessarily communicate it. I can't make the other person a bad person because of it. I just have to own my part in it. And every one of us has done it. Doesn't make us right or wrong or better or worse. It's just the only way the life gets easier is by facing the stuff we don't want to face. The hard conversations, the lessons, they're all blessings. There is like, I love it. There are no mistakes. There's only choices. And so from those situations where you feel you had a missed take, you make another choice and it continues. And where there's failure, there will always be success if you don't give up. There is no such thing as true failure. You just try again in a different capacity. It's just guiding you along the way. And there's always going to be an opportunity. It's the question of whether you see it and you take it. And even if you miss the take, then you'll get another one. So we're really blessed in this world. I just wish more people could see it. I mean, I have my moments. We go through the funks. Holidays tend to be easy to be a funk because some of us who've been around long enough, I mean, you look at children, it's all that childlike wonder because they haven't had enough of the Groundhog's Day yearly rituals to have had experiences filled with trauma. Whereas as we get older, some of us can become, I have a friend who said James, you can appreciate, he calls himself a curmudgeon, right? And because he's so he's got a little bitterness because of and he's a sweetheart. He really is. He gives you the shirt off his back. And just like myself, we have these conversations around our circles being smaller because here we are giving and people are taking, but those same people, when you need them, they're nowhere to be found. And he just jokes and says, I just need a partner that's like me, a little curmudgeon, and we can just go hide out and, on a field of property somewhere. And I also tease him and I'm like, I get it. It's called grieving. It's a grieving process because it does suck when people fall out of our lives, and we have to kind of honor that process, that we're always going to be flushing and cleansing. And, while you're still growing, others aren't, and they're not necessarily going to be able to go with you further down into your path. And we do these times are usually these holidays are when we recognize who isn't there anymore, whether they passed on to the next life path, whatever, or they're still alive and they're just no longer in your life. No matter what, there's celebration there. We don't have to be in the mourning. I still, my mother's birthday is she was born on Thanksgiving, so the 26th of November. It's like, I miss her. I don't get really super sad, but it's the melancholy. Because for me, my family is all about the holidays. This is like parents used to fight over Thanksgiving because my dad loved Thanksgiving. And I'm like, but it was mom's birthday. And dad's birthday is the 9th of December. So they're both right there, butted up against each other. I just, dad's the cook of the family. So he loves to, celebrate and cook. And that's what, brought us together. So, I am fortunate because I have a family that's close, although I have a missing in action sister and would love to find her. My sister and I don't know where she is. Because when my mom passed, she took it the hardest, and she was there with my mom. And I don't know how much guilt she feels because my mother basically had cardiac arrest at the library. And my sister didn't know where she was. She was confused about why she didn't come to pick her up because my mother would pick up my sister. And then my sister called me on the Monday. So it happened on a Saturday. And my sister found her on the Sunday. She was basically in the hospital in a coma. And then I ended up going up to Omaha. And she was basically on life support. And we had to make the choice about, taking her off of it. And I can tell you this, my mother, she's a strong ass woman. She just had a lot of grief, and that hence the cardiac arrest, because that's the heart and the lungs. She had COPD, like people who have a lot of heart and lung issues, that's grief. That's deep-seated grief that hasn't been resolved. And so whenever breathing issues come up, that's the first thing you got to look at is what grief have you not processed? And my mother for many years never, she expressed it to us girls, which, my sisters handled it differently than I did. I had a lot of compassion. I'm the oldest. But my other sisters were like, in some ways they were like, well, how am I supposed to feel? Mom didn't even want to be here, like as if that impacted the amount of love that she still showed us. And I was like, that doesn't change how much she loves us. I mean, she was a big mama bear, like very protective of us. And honestly, she just didn't want to be here from the time she was a child. She saw the evil that, that unfortunately, sometimes you see the evil, sometimes that's all you see. And just like you can see the angelic, you can see the benevolent. And so it's a shift in the mindset. And she didn't want to be here. There were times when I was younger that, she tried to take her own life. And so when we had to take her off of life support, I remember having the conversation with my sisters. I said, listen, you know how mom is. I mean, because my sister, youngest one, she was like, I don't know. And we were talking about also the organ donation. And we were in the chapel and I looked at her, I said, you know how mom is. With the organ donation, they have only a small window of time. So if they take her off of life support, it's up to her. She will decide. And my sister got a spark in her eye, like, holy crap, it like clicked for her. I said, mom, she's always going to have the last choice. She's like, oh, and she just got the finger pointing in the eye. And I was like, see what I mean? Mom always gets the choice in the end. She'd been trying to leave this world for a long time. The fact that she's still on life support and she's still there is mostly because of us. But it was an opportunity for her to also get us all together. Because my mother also used to want to have conversations with us, but it was always about making it the perfect moment. And we would be like, okay, we've heard this all our lives. One day I want to have all you girls so I can sit down. Like it had to be this perfect moment. And it just never happened in the way she needed it to. We would have been sitting at a round table and she would have had all her ducks in a row and she would have just told us whatever it is. But we intuitively, because we'd heard it so long, we didn't need to know. But that I had compassion. And I always said to my sister, I said, she just wasn't willing to say it out loud because that would have meant she had to own it too. That when people have such deep trauma and they have a hard time confronting it, confronting their mind, their story, their BS, their belief systems, it's because they're afraid of the fear of being rejected by others. And with our mother, we loved her. There was nothing she could ever tell us we would reject her. But in her mind, there was something that held her back from revealing it. That she in herself had so much shame. She didn't think we would accept her, but we always did. And so if anybody hears this, just understand there is no shame that you could hold on yourself that somebody who loves you will ever hold against you. That no matter what, your mental health, your being, your soul, your heart deserves the release of the grief, deserves the release of the pressure and the weight that you put on something that is it's not even, it has no control over you. It's just the mind, the story that you've created that somebody won't accept you for it. Make peace with it, make peace with the story, confront the story and tell it, stop lying to me. It's not my story. You can always rewrite your story. There's always time. Once you're aware of it, again, awareness is key. Then you get to unlock the door. It's like this, the real gift you can give yourself is forgiveness. You don't have to forgive others. It's about forgiving yourself. Because anybody that you hold a grudge against is really just you being upset with yourself for trusting or allowing that person to have created this whole inner chaos, crisis. Everything will always start with self. In the end, it all starts with self. So I know it's tough times for some people during this period of the year, but in the end, you got to liberate yourself from all the stories in the mind. And sometimes you do need those breaks from people, but you need to know for yourself your strength and your resilience, whether or not it is healthy for you. If you can hold that, if you can't hold that, then don't put yourself in the situation. I would never say, well, you should just, be loving and kind to somebody who is horrible to you, but you need to discern that. You need to learn how much you can hold yourself first. There's forgiveness, there's making peace with somebody, but there's also keeping the mindset of remembering to also recognize signs where a person may repeat the patterns. You don't want to put yourself in harm's way in cases where if you haven't learned the lesson, then you're not necessarily going to be able to discern when it's coming back up again. So it's a humbleness. It is a process that we all go throughout the course of our lives in different situations. But to truly heal any trauma we've experienced, we also have to acknowledge at the time we didn't know any better. Yes, the people do what they can with what they have in the moment, but also it was just an experience for you to recognize your worth, to also own it and reclaim it, and not allow yourself to be compromised in the future so that we don't repeat the patterns. The experience is there for you to go, okay, that didn't feel so good. I'm in the future, I'm not going to allow that to happen again. It only repeats itself when it's because we feel this loyalty to something, and not necessarily everyone can put their thumb on it. They can't necessarily figure it out, but maybe it's because that's the pattern you've always known, and the loyalty only goes to the point where you're loyal to your familiarity, you're loyal to your comfort zone. You're not necessarily challenging the mental health aspect of it, or whether or not you deserve it. Maybe you deserve better, but you don't know what better is until you put yourself in a new situation. So addiction is essentially just staying in something that feels familiar and comfortable, not necessarily healthy. Yeah.
Excellent point.
And
And it's interesting because my mother's birthday is November 25th. So another synchronicity there.
the Thanksgiving babies.
Yeah. So yeah, that's great advice this time of year, because people really do get bogged down thinking about the past. And just the way you talked about your mother and her last days, and with just confidence and hope and knowing where you are now, you know, it just shows that you've healed because you can look back at things that used to really hurt and be okay with it. So that's awesome. Guys, my battery might go out. If it does, y'all can keep going, but I'm trying to make it charged, but I don't know what's going on. I'm having a lot of issues with devices lately. Must be something in the stars.
Your retrograde's already shadow for the past week. I've been feeling technology, education, travel, redo periods, paying more attention to detail. Good times. Yeah, it's here. It's cold for our floor. We're not used to getting this cold time of year. It's not till at least the end of January, February.
I like what you said there, Lana, about your mother. It sort of encapsulates sort of everything. It's like if you can see the positive aspect in it and what that teaches, and also acknowledging what appears to be negative, it then becomes the perception of it changes, and ultimately how you feel about everything then changes inside as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Again, it's when you make peace with the feeling, you get good at feeling, right? Like being present and really feeling it fully. That changes your frequency. It like just reinforces your whole nervous system shifts and changes, and the resilience that you build up from allowing something deep felt as opposed to resisting, suppressing it. That expression of it, that full, and you more strength, and it gives you more courage in your being, because that is also the whole purpose of us being, right? That is present. That is what builds your power too. Your real superpower is in the, and all of your power exists the being now in this moment. And so it really is building the courage muscle, constantly coming back to the present, being neutral as much as possible, and not allowing things to take you out of your peace and put you in pieces and make you fragmented. We're all seeking to be whole. The funny part is that we've just allowed ourselves to be broken into pieces, selectively choosing things that we want to put back together. All need to be back together, not separated. And again, it's this dualistic, polarizing world that we live in that would want you to stay all fragmented so it can fill in the bits. It can fill in your void with whatever it wants. This is where the wake up is. This is what is, coming into this new year. The messages I've been receiving all this time has all been around the same theme. The time has now come to stop playing small, to really just own your all, to come into your beingness. That if you don't get to know thyself so well to the point where you own it all, this year is going to be where they infiltrate you with the distrust factor. Trust is going to be huge this next year. And if you don't know yourself, you're not going to be able to trust yourself. The whole knowing thyself empowers you, I should say. It empowers you to trust. Because once you know even your horrible stuff, the stuff that you don't want anybody to know about you, it's because of that stuff that you can see that stuff in other people. It's because of that dark side of you, that shadow, that you can shine bright, but also look at someone and see the light in a person who may be doing something that is not kind, or when you can see a person's malevolence, you can also see their benevolence. You can see it all in the person because you see it all in yourself. There is nothing within you that doesn't show up to you. And it's the challenge is sometimes we're like, I don't understand how I attracted this. Well, when in your life have you been that? When in your life have you had a thought that resembled what just showed up to you? It's always there, and it's always presenting itself, but you got to be present.
I think we lost Julia there. The battery must have gone.
Oh no. Oh, she dropped out. That's so what do you have planned for this weekend, James? Just
tomorrow I've been invited round well, to Claire and Stephen. They've been on the channel in previous videos a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
They said to me, what are you doing on the 25th? And I said, she said, oh, you're not being on your own. So I thought that's really nice. So I thought, well, I know this is all going to pan out right. I start feeling achy feelings on the 20th. I thought, well, I know how long this is going to take. I'm going to be fully. I felt the shift over the days anyway. So I just treat it as it's like a cleansing process, and
Mm-hmm.
it's only something good is going to come out of it. Yeah, I agree with you about next year. The trust is going to be a huge word. It's in a few things associated with the government in the UK. I can think of straight off, and I think there'll be a lot of people questioning.
For sure.
It is all one. It is really just divine comedy, because I found when you see the one side of something and see the response, it's like, actually that's quite funny in a way. But the latest one seems to be with these Cabbage Patch children, which seems to center around Victorian. And that's almost like, well, you've got no natural goodness in supermarket fruit and veg. Oh, let's give them some new greens instead. Which of course is all artificial, and it's all on, therefore two-dimensional and really shallow. and it's like, yeah, I see the joke in that now. It's a dark humor, but I can see the humor in it. But what drives it, what powers it? It's humanity, by taking that script and running with it. And it seems to be the blueprint for everything else in this reality. It's like, wow, we're all doing this to ourselves.
And that's the divine comedy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So
well, and because they've go ahead.
Carry on.
No, I was just thinking that I mean, again, it's layers upon layers of distractions. And I always think of the Wizard of Oz, and that's what I say. It's like, pay no attention to the man behind the counter. What you are paying attention to, the curtain, what you are paying attention to is only a distraction. If you can just acknowledge the fact that it's so unreal, that's why it's not real, that you can see through it, but you have to be able to your truth. Because in order to see truth, you have to know it in yourself. And so when you see these crazy things happening on the world stage, listen, this is all going on. It's just that they've up to the degree that they're bombarding people. I mean, a barrage of bullshit. I mean, I'm sorry, belief systems that are reinforced, implanted. And so the more, again, you see repeated over and over again, they're reinforcing. That's basic psychology. You hear it enough times, you begin to believe the lies, and most of it, it's truth in the lies and lies in the truth. And people can choose and they can cherry pick, but you don't need to do anything. You don't even need to engage in it. It's the this or that. Choosing this or that is what is the trap. It's, again, you got sucked in by the Wetico, by the mind, thinking you needed to be engaged with something that isn't even real. So it's the no thing. Nothing. There is substance. This is just more. Oh, it just blows your mind. For some of us, I just look at it. I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? People think this is acceptable. This is not even real. I can't even. Like, I got a life to live. I got a life to live. Whatever.
It's I like the way it's played out, particularly with religions. People are sort of stand up, face a window, and then they cross themselves, and it's like they don't even realize what they're doing. They are crossing themselves. And it's like, oh dear, but that's what they want to go with. That's up to them. But there seems to be a blind spot, particularly with Christians, when you mentioned about, well, how do you explain Mayans and Aztecs and Aboriginals? And they don't seem to have an answer for that one. And yet they're sort of they're far older teachings and consistent. That's not to say that what's in the Bible isn't a consistent story. It's just perspective. If you read it as an internal dialogue, ideally you want to be experiencer, the witness, and the observer. The witness is that you're actually witnessing the thing. The experiencer is because you're going through the experience, and the observer is knowing what page you're on in the Bible, because pretty much every in there is played out. It's just the stage set has changed. It's no longer in the Middle East 2,000 years ago or whenever. It's like any theatre show. It's updated. It's given new costumes, but it's the same message all the way through. You mentioned earlier about Sarah Connor. Well, the character that comes back to protect her is called Kyle Reese, which is basically an anagram of like seer, because he's from a, as he calls it, one possible future. And so he does sort of, but then you've got that other story. It's like the father is sent by the son. So the son sends the father, so the father can then create the son, and it's like a loop. And I find that aspect of the film fascinating, the esoteric message in all these films. But yeah, I agree. It's also interesting as well, these crossovers. So you've got the Alien film, or the Alien series of films, and what was the other one? There's several actors that overlap. I'm trying to think of his name now.
And Schwarzenegger.
I think is one of them. Michael Ben, who played Kyle Reese, he was in one of the other ones. Some Corporal Hicks in the second, I think it's the Aliens film, or it must be the Aliens film. So there's an overlap of these actors in these films as well, which is almost like that's showing something as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even the Hollywood, the holly tree, the casting calls. I okay. First question I have for you: do you follow West Block TV with this guy Paul? He does a great job breaking down, and he keeps bringing up Janus, the god Janus.
Oh, sorry, it broke up. Yeah, Paul. Yeah, I was watching one of his videos on you earlier. Funny enough.
Probably the same one he just posted it, right? Yeah, it was really good. And that and the last one before were two of his, I'd say, in a long time. I mean, he's really material. And I appreciate what he brings up because it's that keen eye attention that he picks up on some things that really, I'm just like, wow, you can't make this stuff up. And because he brought up Dallas and the whole Baphomet and bring back to Janus and the portals and the horrors and everything else. But going back to the Hollywood, I don't compare those two, probably because it is all anyway. But if you look over the course of time, they've always used the theater to distract the masses in previous history. Everything is the royals, whatever you want to call it. Some people say elites and all these bloodlines. I'm over here sitting here going, there's a path. This is no different than back in the day, medieval or otherwise, even the Egyptians, that they used the Hollywood, the actors, to distract the people and to mesmerize, which is a form of hypnotize people into accepting and materialize, because the manifestation is where attention goes, energy flows. That's how you make matter, right? I've always said that if you don't mind, you don't let your mind state on it, then it doesn't become matter. But when you mind, you put your mind, intention, and focus, currency, you are paying for experience. You are creating form into matter, mind. And they know, obviously, it wouldn't be so good if they do. The reasons have been that they've just been able to reset and everybody clean, whether it's a mental cleaning out, wiping us without our memory, or an actual dissolving of actual physical, whatever it is, doesn't really matter. It's just stand up and go, okay, we see it. We see it clearly for what it is. I almost am, and again, I don't know if this is hijacking of a previous existence that we had, because I do think that there's a lot of time travel and things like that. I think there's many, many layers to everything. Because I listen to Jason Archaic sometimes. I listen to all these theories and I just kind of go, but there are layers, because ultimately there is God source energy. So you can talk about AI and all this stuff too, but that's just a layer on top of a bigger layer. Like I say, we can't just say it's just AI and all stuff is being done through digital, or like, I'm not a huge, I don't even go into the fear of to be totally honest with you, because I'm like, you know what? It's not my experience. So I can't go there. I can't speak about it. I can't say I'm for or against it because I have no knowledge of it. I personally think anything is probably a government thing. I don't think, I don't know. That's just one theory I have. Because they're so good with movies. Of course they're going to create something because they need more fear to harvest. But then all these layers, it's really about, again, don't go without, go. Everything you seek is within you. So stuff outside of you. You're a seeker. You need to really harvest and mine the gold within you. That's alchemy. All the stuff outside of us is just trying to get our attention to go within or distract us from it. But it's all part of the design. I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think eventually things just always end up being guided in the direction they're meant to be. It's very curious.
There's a
Somebody-
saying,
Hmm?
there's a saying about seeing the bigger picture. Well, if you look at photography, you have pictures that are composites, and I liken this reality to being like layers upon layers upon layers, like you could build up a composite picture, but those layers will keep changing position, almost like the speed that a computer program will operate, as it were, when you see like the little flashing lights. And it's going at such a speed, and it seems totally interactive. It's like, I like the idea actually that this is a computer game, and when I say, a lot of people are put off by this and think, oh, so we're in a simulation or whatever, but I feel it's the perception of the words, because we always give labels to things, and then they get compartmentalized to mean this or mean that. But I've got no problem with calling it a simulation or whatever, because I see it as a living simulation. A biocomputer, it is and it isn't at the same time. It is the sort of duality of the Janus thing, and that's what I took from. I think I've said this I mentioned this to Paul before. It's like there's a common factor with so many words like thalamus, Christus, Janus. They've all got us. It's referring to us.
Yeah, exactly.
We're all Janus. So it's whether we can see both polarities or four directions at the same time and be centered within a self. That's the way I sort of interpret that. I don't see Janus as being some terrifying entity, but I feel that there's a certain knowledge or something that's been hijacked, or something that is running, that is or appears to be serving a self-serving agenda. Maybe it's just a role, a bit like a villain and a hero in a theatre show. When the curtain opens up again, they both come out and both bow, but you don't boo at the villain. You cheer equally for the actors or actresses on the stage, but you then see it was just a play. But it depends how believable you make it. How much, or the other way I describe it is, you're watching a film, just watch it, but don't get sucked into it.
Well, and I would postulate, and this is something I've kind of, when we talk shift in the the realities that has occurred over the years, I don't want to say simulation necessarily in a full sense, because I think that could be just as easily being a manipulative plant. To a certain degree, yes. And to a certain degree, I think it's not. Because the game of life is individuals, yes, playing out on this world stage. But I have a suspicion, this is just my current postulation that just came into my awareness, that when there was this shift in the realities, that what it was that the AI came in. You know, I think Archaics calls it AIX, and I don't know all of his theories off the top of my head, because sometimes I listen and I'm like, okay, that's a little bit too much, and maybe we don't need to know all these details. You know, there's some surface level, there's some foundations, but I think sometimes, because, you know, like soul trap stuff too, it's like fear. Again, it's more fear stuff, but I really think it's part of that hijacking. And if you're going to buy into a simulation theory, then you may be also feeding the AI what it's trying to do and bring everybody over. I do believe, you know, there's the architect. I listened to Logan Decode Your Reality too, and I had a reading with him a year ago. The idea of an architect makes sense to me. But again, I think it's a higher source. And I do believe that, again, in God's source, there is this, we are each expressions of God. And so God wants to have all these unique individual experiences. I think that there are layers to this whole AI thing. And I'm not 100% sure of the storyline in which it is. I don't know how to articulate it, because it's just kind of formulating in me still right at the moment, where we want to be discerning in this. Again, this is going to go back to the trust in this next year. I feel like the more I sit with it, and I've had some experiences where I'm like, I'm not giving myself over to a digital entity, because maybe that is in itself part of the trick. So if we're buying into the simulation theory, are we also creating it from the time we buy into it? Maybe it really isn't. Maybe there is a certain percentage that will buy into it. Have you seen the movie The 13th Floor?
No, I've not seen that film.
It's rather interesting, and it has to do with the digital worlds, where the man goes into this digital environment, and the people in that digital world believe they're living in a simulated reality. And the guy actually goes to the end to where you can see the grids and the digital and backdrop. And I always thought that movie was quite fascinating. I have it on DVD somewhere. And I just was like, that was a really intriguing movie. And it always just stuck with me, just like the Lawnmower Man. There's a Lawnmower Man 1 and there's a 2. That was the Brosnan. And that was really that was an interesting one. And those movies stood out to me because of my IT background. But I'm very I try to not dive fully into everything. I just want to hear out of curiosity and oh, okay, yeah, I want to stay still a part of it. I'm still the observer. I'm still witnessing. Everybody, wants to believe in something. So it can be easy to draw someone so deep into something because they're seeking so deeply, right? But they're not seeking within. So again, this is how you're getting hijacked. You want to buy into it, whatever it is. How much are you using myself? Because does it resonate? Really feel that? I don't yet. I haven't quite bought into series because I want to be discerning and to recognize, when I go outside, I overheard somebody talk about, it was have you watched, okay, Howdy. I was watching Howdy's video the other day talking about some of the theories around nature's just a backdrop. And I was like, I don't know about that one, because to me, nature reflects us. And I believe, and we are symbiotic nature. It protects us, and we need to protect nature. And there are certain things that, okay, let me just throw this out there. If people want to believe in simulation theory, what makes you think that being a vegan, being a, this or a that makes you doing the right thing? I can really throw all sorts of okay, there's a cog in your wheel. You want to believe, because I've been on the extreme sides of this pendulum, and we want to believe that we're doing the right thing for the environment and the planet and the animals and this, that, and the other. But all of this stuff is distracting us from living a life that maybe we're here to just experience. So how much of the dogma are we going to hold on to until we realize the freedom and the liberation is in just stepping away from all that nonsense? No sense. Compassion has to start with yourself. You're not going to be able to extend it to another being of nature, literally. And so if people go down that simulation theory, they're going to have to be faced with their true humanity not being humane. You know what I mean? There's your paradox. You want to think of simulation theory? Okay, so you have people that are like, well, then it doesn't matter what I eat or what I do. And then you're going to have other people that are going to be stuck in that cognitive dissonance of, but everything I've been doing was because I thought it was right. And you're telling me it's a simulation, so it doesn't thing. Or does it? So this can really throw, again, this is going to be back to the trust aspect, because to consider it as a possibility also means a lot of confronting your BS, a lot of you really dealing with the possibility that every thought was a lie you were loyal to. We've all been loyal to our lies, to our BS. The question is how can we honestly just be okay with, are we going to fight it nail? Because of course the mind is right and the heart wants to be happy. And what feels right is what is true. And when the mind is so in there hijacking you, like, you got to do this and you got to do that, you're taken away from the present and the now. So, this is what has humbled me over the years, is not to be so judgmental about people's choices and their lifestyles, because of the fact that that's another way to hijack us from coming together. I know people who are most amazingly beautiful, big-hearted, soulful, spiritual, but yet you wouldn't think they were spiritual because of your, based on the the conditioning, the world that we live in that says, we have to protect the environment. We need to be green. We need to do this. We need to do that. Look at the hypocrisy of we need to turn around and get rid of fossil fuels from the same people who created the dependency on them and are creating the solution onto another resource hijacking, destructive method of, like, we're going to go to electric cars, but nobody's actually going to look at the fact that what it takes to make one electric car is unbelievably mining and, causing all sorts of other things. Whereas fossil fuel is a renewable resource underneath the earth. Like, why not get the hydrogen cars? There's so many different every time somebody's come up with a better idea, what do? They off them, So it's really just being honest with ourselves too, that it's okay to have made mistakes and it's okay to be wrong. All of it's going to come out in the end. And are you happy as a result of your choices? Or do you feel still that resistance to, like people who have so much anger in them, and it's usually because they don't feel aligned with all of their life. They don't feel aligned with the choices they made, the people they're around, and they don't even realize that that's really what it is, that their anger is within toward themselves for not being where they really deeply desire to be, when they could just make the choice to be there. Of course, everybody always comes up with their excuses of but this and but that, but then that's just the victimhood story feeding the BS. But it's quite the interesting conundrum. I mean, I don't want to say yay or nay, like I said about the aliens. I've never encountered any of them, so I'm not going to sit here and say I believe in them. I'm not going to say I don't believe in them. I've just never experienced it. And my military background just kind of has me over here with the, a discerning eye going, how do we know that's not just another one of those programs? So that's where I'm at with all of that. And I just keep an open mind, because I don't want to say yay or nay, because I know I've made mistakes in observation. But I would rather be assured that I know what is true for me in my heart and soul than to buy into something outside of myself that doesn't align to it. I mean, over this past couple of years, when I was on my social media, do you know how many times I would see somebody post something and I was like, yeah. And it was totally go. And I'm like, yeah. And I'd share it. And I'd be like, that's, and then later on find out that it was some form of an infiltration, controlled opposition. And somebody would call me out and say, did you actually research that? I was like, oh, wow. You know what? I'm not posting anything until I research it. And I'm pretty good about being very discerning. But when I get caught off guard like that, that's when I know I got to go back in. And that happened a couple times a couple years ago. And I said, okay, that's my lesson. My lesson is to trust again. And I know this, but it was a test. And that was the test I needed for me, that I see coming down the pipeline for a lot of people in this next year. Let's see how easily they buy into the infiltration, the influencing, because they've got both sides out there pulling people in to keep them engaged.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like the word simulation, it can be seen as such a trigger with a lot of people, but I I
Mhm.
just see it as a way of describing something because it's the only word we've got, as it were, really. But
Mm,
it also feels there's something beyond this that's maybe it's one thing with two polarities. I don't know, but it does seem to be more of, well, as you said, it's feeling is healing, and you think about it with with a radio, it's a frequency and it's tuned into whatever hertz. Frequency hertz, and that's, you wouldn't feel it if
oh,
it didn't.
mhm.
But it's
Well,
the
and
way
just like I said earlier, they can hear, they can tune into your frequency. They can tune into your thoughts. If you're not already tapped into your own frequency and knowing your own thoughts, conscious and unconscious, then what makes you think they're not trying to infiltrate that kind of stuff into us already? This is, and it's not a fear factor for me to say this. This is a, you should be aligned. You should care enough to, everybody's a seeker, but if you're not seeking the gold within yourself, then you're going to be left empty handed.
it's, what I've observed, particularly with things like Messenger, you've got this predictive text. It gives you a choice of 3 words depending on the first one you've put down. It's like it's learning from us, our individual way of expressing things, and oh, last time they said that word or that word, so we'll offer these options, and then it'll work on it. And then some people will think, oh great, I haven't got to type out the word, I'll just select this, and then it'll be writing the story for you before long. And to me, that's what's being shown with these devices and the technology. I mean, you've got you had a civilization called Aztec, and now you've got a civilization as tech. It just seems to be repeating, but with
And that,
updated.
well, and they have been. Like I said, my first jobs out of the military were basically interviewing for those types of jobs. It sees what you've typed before, and just based on the last word you typed, it's already predicting the next one based on your previous times. And that's everything in your device. Now, lately, I don't know what they've been doing with the updates, but it's like they're deliberately. It used to be you could double click a word, double click caps lock, and it would allow you to uppercase the whole word. Now you got to do it all on your, do it over. Just like you used to be able to double click a word, click the caps lock just once, and it would allow you to uppercase the word. Like a lot of things that used to work really well, no longer work. So they're also, if you think about it, the predictive text isn't just for predicting what you're going to write, but also what they want you to write. See how the play can go? It goes both ways. So they're planting
Definitely.
seeds because they've been able to predict for a while. So now they're also going to try to predict in the sense of manipulating.
Definitely. I'm feeling a bit exhausted now anyway. My body's saying rest again.
I am so with you. I've got to go meet up with my dad because he's cooking me dinner. So, and that's the joy I bring to my dad today is celebrating my dad being able to get it like a little kid. So I hope
Very
you
nice.
feel better.
It'll pass. It's just a transition. It's like perfect timing to come around at this time of year. It's like I don't mind that. It's like go for it.
This is the rest period. Sure. Well, enjoy your rest and stay blessed. And to everyone out there, thank you for listening. Remember to be kind and gentle. in your heart, and so much love to everyone out there. Surround yourself with those who uplift you, inspire you, and make you a better person, as well as you do the same for others. Lots of mwah.
Sorry, it cut out on the last bit there. But I think the only bit I could really add to that is, and thank you to Julia for hosting this chat. It's been wonderful.
Yes. Yes. I'm going to stop it now. So everyone take care.